Boy, it's getting crazy in D.C., don't you think? So here's the bottom line. The New York Times does an investigation. They run a story, and they say, look, we can't find anybody breaking any laws as far as interacting with the Russian government. So no lawbreakers here that we can find right now. Congress, meantime, is going bananas over this. The Democrats, because they want to tie it back to the election and prove something and get smoking guns and all this stuff. There's three issues here. Let me break it out for you as succinctly, saliently, and cogent as I can. There's three separate issues. Let me get with the easiest issue. General Flynn doesn't appear in the phone calls to his Russian counterpart. He broke the law. Therefore, there's no prosecution or anything like that. However, he was asked to resign. Trump fired him. Why? Well, because he exercised dreadful judgment. That's why. And he was not forthcoming with the vice president. That's why he had to go. Not because of the media, not because of anything else, not because of what he said. The fact that he was not forthright with the vice president of the United States is a big issue, because in that position, national security director, advisor, you have to be trusted by the president and the vice president. That trust declined. Therefore, he couldn't stay. Number two, as a high-ranking intelligence officer, he knew that his calls would be monitored, especially when he took one at the beach in Puerto Rico. So he exercised dreadful judgment. And so Donald Trump did the right thing. Trump said, I'm going to hold everybody accountable. In the Obama administration, Susan Rice got on TV, went to 7 Sunday shows, lied, and got a promotion. In Trump world, you mislead him or your vice president, you go. You get fired. That's it. End of story. Trump didn't want to do this, but he had no choice, and he did the right thing, and he acted quickly. I don't know what else you want. The guy made a mistake. And part of what Flynn did was just a exercise in very bad judgment. And so you're sitting there as the president of the United States, and you're like, he was not forthright with my vice president. Maybe he was not forthright with me if I asked him. We don't know that. But we know that he was not forthright with Mike Pence. And we also know that as a decorated, experienced, veteran intel officer, he knew his calls were going to get monitored, and he did them anyway, and his timing was bad. And so he exercised cavalier judgment. He behaved in a cavalier manner. Now, you have to agree with that. I mean, look, I am the defender of the movement, but you have to agree with that. It was not smart. And so you got a truth issue, you got a forthrightness issue, and then you got a judgment issue. You're fired. You can't be in that job. Goodbye. So now they named someone else. Yesterday, naming his replacement from decorated officer, also Harvard-educated Navy guy. So I think he's going to be fine. So let's put that aside. That's issue number one. The second, and all of these are disconnected. Everybody wants to connect them. They're not. Second issue that has to do with this whole thing is the level of the actual phone calls that were made. And did anybody break any laws? And the answer to that question right now, pending, I guess, further analysis, is no. The New York Times said as much yesterday, not exactly the bastion of intellectual thought. So, of conservative thought, let me put it that way. So the Times couldn't find anything. Maybe there's something there. Does it look like it? Perhaps Paul Manafort has some interaction. He was doing business. He had the government of Ukraine as a client. Maybe he had some interaction. He says he did not. Trump fired him. As soon as the Ukrainian thing came out, Trump fired him. Gone. Goodbye. So again, Trump made a decisive decision. So it gets back to what exactly did they do? I can't find anything here. Right? And the subset of the second piece of this, which is what was the interaction with the Russian government, is that I believe in Trump's policy of not making war with these people. So anything that Trump can do to get a better relationship with the Russians, I'm in favor of that. Because I want to get out of these wars and I want to find ways to work together. Just like Trump did yesterday with Netanyahu in the White House. Bibi in the White House, I thought That was Trump's finest moment. And what did he do for negotiation? He said, 1 state, 2 state, I'm going to do whatever we got to do. Normally what happens with the U.S.-Israeli Palestine negotiations is the U.S. wants peace, a peace deal so bad. If the negotiator, if the intermediary wants the deal more than the two parties want the deal, it's a bad deal. And Trump basically took the whole 2-state thing off the table. So his negotiating position went up. And he's like, hey, either we work this out or not. Not the end of the world. But look, 1 state, I'm fine with that. So he took that off the table. So now you get to the third element of this, which is the leaks. And where I think what I would advocate for Trump supporters is you got to separate these out. Because what you want to do is say, well, the real problem is not that Flynn made the phone calls. It's the fact that Flynn's phone calls got leaked. And did they get a warrant? And who signed the warrant? And did it go through a FISA court? And what did Comey do? And who else do we have transcripts on? And who else is that violating their rights as U.S. citizens? And that was not in the Patriot Act, and you can't get a transcript, etc. And so the tendency is to say, well, this whole thing is because of illegal leaks. Separate it. The content of the phone call and the actuality of the phone call has to be dealt with apart from the leak, just like we did during the campaign. Remember when the Clinton team was going absolutely berserk over these fact that a foreign government hacked into the DNC and they got all these emails, and there was somebody got on the phone and with reporters and said, it shook me to my core. That was their line back then and all this nonsense. And we were saying, well, deal with that separately. The fact is, the emails are the emails. You're not denying them. And what the emails are proving is the Clinton campaign is very duplicitous, very dishonest, very dismissive of working class people, very arrogant, and they basically hate the people that they're trying to get them to vote for them in the middle and lower class, right? That's what came out of those emails. But the email stood alone as separate from the hack, as separate from the leaks. So you got to take these separately. So the content of Flynn or anybody else's calls with foreign diplomats is going to be monitored because we have a Patriot Act and a secret FISA court. So Republicans passed that. I would have voted no. I hated the Patriot Act. But Republicans passed it. So come on, man. You guys passed it. And cheered when it passed. And it came up and you passed it again. So you opened yourself up for this nonsense. So this is separate. So whatever Flynn did on these calls, assuming Comey got a FISA court secret judge to sign a warrant, is now fair play. Don't whine about that. The leaks. Separate them out. Because tie the two, it garbles your argument. And then the liberals come back and say, well, you're dishonest, you're duplicitous, it's the same thing that happened in the campaign, and blah, blah, blah. Separate it out. Leaks in government are a problem. And leaks in the Trump administration are going to continue on because you've got entrenched neoconservative bureaucrats that hate Trump. Remember, Clinton got 97% of the vote in Washington, D.C. Trump got 3%. Who are these people? Bureaucrats, right? They hate Trump. They hate his agenda. They don't like anything he's doing. They're going to do everything they can to undermine him. So when these leaks go to the media and it's sensitive intel, they have to be prosecuted. That's a violation of the law. Obama did this twice. Find them, prosecute them, jail them. Can't do it. That'll stop it. You put a few people behind bars, that's the end of that. Meantime, it's going to continue. So you got that leak. Then you have the leaks within the Trump administration itself. Because you have three competing factions. Priebus and the cabal he put in at the Republican National Committee. Kellyanne Conway, who's a fiefdom herself with her own staff. I'm not sure what the deal is there, but that's a faction. She's got an audience of one. And then you've got Bannon, Miller, Kushner. Okay? And so they can come out and say all they want, beat the drums, have a hug, do a group hug or whatever. These are factions. And people on their staffs don't like other people that they're going to undermine to get more power, so they're going to leak stuff. So you got leaks happening in the bureaucracy that are illegal, and you have them happening within Trump's own team for political maneuvering and gain. People in the establishment aligned with Priebus hated Flynn because he was part of the movement. And so the Priebus faction has systematically cut out anybody that had access to the president who was there early and part of the movement. They put him in agencies and they got him out of the White House. I'm just telling you the truth. So these leaks have to be dealt with. If you're a student of history, go back to 1969, 1970. Henry Kissinger, Richard Nixon, negotiating with Hanoi, negotiating with the Chinese. There were so many leaks coming out of that intel bureaucracy and coming out of that rat's nest in the State Department that hated Nixon. There were so many leaks that Nixon and Kissinger decided to back channel everything. They wouldn't even loop in the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff because they didn't trust him. They didn't loop in people in the State Department. They didn't loop in people in the CIA. They had secret discussions because everything they were doing was getting leaked to one faction or the other faction or to the media. Pentagon Papers, remember that, etc. So Richard Nixon went through the same thing. And they just decided, I'm going to cut everybody out. And still, there's a whole book written on this. We had an attaché that was kind of a secret agent for the Joint Chiefs of Staff that was going through Kissinger's briefcase at night. His attaché was flipping through papers and funneling it back to the Department of Defense. Right? So this is nothing new. The bureaucracy in government in America is an institution in and of itself. And it self-perpetuates and protects its own in perpetuity. And jobs are at stake, careers are at stake, and things like that. And they want to be in the know, and they want to dictate what's going on. So you got a new president that comes in that doesn't care what they say, wants to change them, puts on a hiring freeze, is changing the international order, new world order. You saw that yesterday with Israel, new world order. I don't have to have a two-state solution is what Trump said. I could go with one state, new world order. This is upsetting the neocon, globalist, internationalist worldview of bureaucrats entrenched in our government that want none of this. They love NATO. They want to be masters of the universe. They want to meddle in all this stuff. And so they see Trump as a huge threat to this. And so these leaks are going to continue, and it's a security issue. They have to be dealt with separately. But my narrative today is, in making this argument intellectually, you have to separate out the leaks from the phone calls made and the content of them. Because we can't have it both ways. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network. I'll be right back.